Okay, welcome everyone. Today we continue on our Asian philosophy, and then we are continue to read Feng Youlan's book, The Short History of Chinese Philosophy. And today we are on chapter 10. The title is The Third Phase of Taoism, Zhuangzi. Okay, that's today, July 13th. And then you can see our schedule has a little bit changed. We will do Chinese philosophy and Hinduism, okay, every other week. So next week we will go into Bhagavad Gita review one, and then you can see the schedule. And the reason is we would like to finish Bhagavad Gita 18 chapter. And I know a lot of people may not read the first 14, 13 chapter or read it before, but forgot. So that's why we will start roughly every month. We will start with some review and go to the next chapter. So that's the process we will do. And that's a new try. So if you, let me see. So we can, just 1 minute. I probably need some. Is anyone willing to help me manage the crowd?
I can do that for you, Jason.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Just 1 minute. Okay, thank you, Steve. All right, so let's start. Okay, for today. And today's title is The Third Phase of Taoism. The philosopher name is Zhuangzi, and you may see two different kind of spelling. Okay, so the first one in the text you read is Zhuangzi, and the spelling called the Wade Giles, and that's old spelling. And the one I like to use is so-called pinyin. That would be more. Thank you, Steve. Okay, so all right. So that's the today's title. Okay, so the book we are using is A Short History of the Chinese Philosophy, which is authored by Feng Youlan. The book is written at 1947. It's a lecture in the University of Pennsylvania. So I just want to quickly go through about this book. And then okay, so let me move on. So just get the overview of this book. We have 28 chapters, and then we are on chapter 10. And each time, each meetup, we are going to run through one chapter. So today, the title is about Zhuangzi, which the title is the third phase of Taoism. So last time we talked about so-called the second phase of Taoism, which the philosopher is Laozi. So these two are associated together, usually both considered as important Taoism philosopher. They are similar, but they are also different. So that's what we are going to talk about today. So let's go back to the overview of all ancient Chinese philosophy. A few months ago, we talked about the sixth school: Confucianism, Legalism, Taoism, Moism, and the School of Nan, and the Yin Yang School. We will deal with Yin Yang School in a few weeks. And today we are dealing with Taoism. So last time we talked about Laozi, which is based on Dao De Jing, and then today we are dealing with Zhuangzi, and then the book we also call Zhuangzi. So and then few chapters later, they have this new movement called Neo-Taoism. That's in about 200 CE, which is 400 years later. Okay, so the time of this philosophy is formed is during so-called the Warring State. That's around about 300 BCE. Okay, so we are dealing with the philosophy, which is about 2,300 years before today. So since we are dealing with the Taoism, okay, so we, according to the author Feng Youlan, we have three stages of the development of Taoism. So the first one, so-called Yangzhu, basics is talking about self. Okay, basic is individualism. The second phase, so-called Laozi, basically universalize this concept of individualism, so kind of become selfless. And the third stage is Zhuangzi, basically start to think about the remove the distinction between man and the the world, life and the death. So that's the philosophy we are going to deal today. Just a quick review on the philosophy of Laozi, which we talked about 2-3 weeks ago. Okay, so that's a quick review. When you have a hands up?
Yes, I can see its division of the three phases of Taoism, but I'm just wondering how well recognized is that? Is that just his opinion, or is it pretty much the opinion of
Okay,
most
thank you for bringing up this. Okay, so this one is Feng Youlan's opinion, and okay, I will talk about this in a few slides. Okay, because traditionally people don't think about Yangzhu. Okay, the so-called the first phase. I talk about traditional. Traditional means for past 1,500 years. Okay, people always think about Laozi is much older than Zhuangzi. Okay, and the Zhuangzi is a follower of Laozi. I believe when that's probably what you learned or what you heard, because that's the most of the people believe this way. And the author Feng Youlan, he believed, okay, which have some scholar also have this kind of concept, especially modern scholar. I believe Mark is here. He probably will support this idea. Okay, Yangzhu is the first phase, and then Laozi become the second phase, and Zhuangzi is the third phase. So that's the different argument. But if you ask most of people in the college in Asia, they will tell you, oh, Yangzhu doesn't count, and Laozi is far older than Zhuangzi. Okay, Zhuangzi is the follower of Laozi. That's the most people believe. Okay. But you can choose what you want to believe. And then today's presentation, I will base on the author Feng Youlan's theory on that. So I hope I answer your question. Wait, yeah.
Thank you.
So just a quick review for the person who didn't attend or not familiar with Laozi, also called Dao De Jing, this book. Basics, the philosophy is I separate in, put in the four category. Metaphysics, talking about Dao, being, non-being. Then second part, talking about natural law. And the natural law basic is when a thing reach one extreme, it reverts from it. So you don't go to the extreme. And talk about moral law, basic is based on de, and sometimes translated as virtue. Basic talking about know when to stop, talking about your life should be simple, simplicity, and talking about non-interfering. Okay, so that's the moral law. And then, of course, also have a political theory. And the political theory is about wu wei, so-called non-action. So today you will see so-called the third phase, the philosophy of Zhuangzi, which you will see the similar, okay, you may see, oh, that's the same idea. or you may see that's kind of same idea, but they Zhuangzi talk about it a different way. Or you may see that's different philosophy. So that's your choice. And then what I'm doing today is going through Feng Youlan's writing, and then let's see how we understand the philosophy of Zhuangzi. So before I go to the person who is Zhuangzi, is anyone have a question, comment before I go to the next step? So I'm not sure how many of you heard the name Zhuangzi, or probably that's the first time you heard. So here I find out Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy has a pretty good introduction about Zhuangzi. So I copy the text on the first two paragraphs, and I break it down to a few PowerPoint bullet point. So first, Zhuangzi. So through the text, I will use this Zhuangzi to mean a person. Okay, so sometimes if you see Wade Giles' assistant was spelled as Zhuangzi, and the Chinese called Zhuangzi. Basically means Master Zhuang. Zhuang is his last name. And sometimes I put the two words together, Zhuangzi. Okay, so in this case, I mean the book. Okay, the book is a philosophical book. We call the Zhuangzi. Okay, so again, we may argue, okay, is Zhuangzi is the author of the Zhuangzi? It's a difficult question, okay, but I will talk about this later, which probably not that important. And then another thing is about the theme of this philosophy. We will call Dao. That's why both Zhuangzi and the Laozi has been called Taoism. And what is Dao? We will talk about later. And according to Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, his explanation is a social or natural path. In a way, it's correct. Okay, I put it this way. So here is interesting. Okay, here we said traditionally orthodoxy understand Zhuangzi as an anti-rational follower of mystical Laozi. Okay, that tradition view dominated the mainstream reading of the text. So that's probably when asked the question about what's the relationship between Zhuangzi and the Laozi. Okay, so that's the tradition view. But recent archaeological discoveries, okay, have laid that answer to rest. So, which I agree, and I don't read any archaeological paper about this. But when I read both texts of the Zhuangzi and the Laozi, I do believe the tradition view is wrong. Okay, I believe Zhuangzi could be earlier than Laozi, okay, in a way, or at least they are writing in the same time. Okay, so that's
Jason.
Yes, please.
I'm sorry. What is recent archaeological discovery changed? Just the timing of Zhuangzi?
I don't know the archaeological discovery. Okay, I don't know. I copy from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, but I do believe, okay, Laozi is not much older than Zhuangzi. Okay, because if you know, every Tuesday I'm working on the so-called chapter by chapter translation on the text of Laozi, and I read the text. I'm convinced this text cannot be older than Zhuangzi. Okay, it must be written later time, not early time. That's what I believe.
Do you just mean because of the nature of the language, the nature of the
Yes, the
linguistics?
format of language and the theme of language. Because they talk about war, talking about fighting, battlefield, which doesn't exist in the old time writing, and the style it's hard to describe, right? What's the style? Okay, so I just have the feeling. Of course, I'm no academic scholar, so I cannot have a strong argument. I just can share. Okay, that's my feeling. Okay, Mark. Mark, you have a comment?
Oh yeah, Jason, I'm in kind of a noisy place. Can you hear me okay? Can you understand
Yeah, it's
what I'm
okay. Yeah,
saying? Okay. So first of all, it's my impression that Zhuangzi doesn't mention Tao Te Ching or Lao Tzu in the text.
that's
You can
right.
correct me if that's not wrong. Okay. And does he mention Confucius or any other philosophers in the text that would help daze
Yes.
him that you know? Okay, go ahead. Would you
Okay, so
elaborate on that a little bit?
yeah, thank you to bring this up. That's very important. Okay, Zhuangzi do mention Confucius a lot. Okay, all the time. Okay, but okay, but the story is not true. Okay, but at least he knows Confucius. He mentioned about Yan Hui. Okay, and Yan Hui is Confucius' favorite student. We will talk about this today. But the story is not true. But at least Zhuangzi knows this name. Zhuangzi also mentioned about Laozi, okay, and he called him as Lao Dan or something like Laozi. So that means Zhuangzi also knows that's a person, Laozi. Here the argument is Laozi the real author of Dao De Jing? That's the question mark, and that's why the argument here, because they could have a person called Laozi, but that Laozi is not the author of Dao De Jing. That's the argument here. But I don't think that should be that important, because today we just look at the text and we understand the philosophy. And then if you have a special interest, then we can discuss later or in a different session. Joe, please.
Yes, Jason. So from what I read of the text, I got the impression that the Chuang-tzu was written in different periods. So is it possible that what you're talking about is a later representation?
About Zhuangzi?
Yes. In other words, what I read from the text implied that there was an early Chuang-tzu, and then there was later stuff that seems to have been added on.
Yeah, so as a note, since we are dealing with text, just like you read Plato, right? People still argue the seventh letter is written by Plato or not. Okay, there's no consensus among scholars. Same as the situation. Okay, I will show later in a few chapters about this. Okay, but here I just quickly go through. So the Zhuangzi and the Laozi thinking, which help Chinese to develop the Zen Buddhism, which is 400 years later. Okay, it's a distinctive Chinese nature blend of Taoism and Buddhism. Okay, so please don't mix with Buddhism thinking today with Zhuangzi's thinking. Okay, because Zhuangzi's thinking is original, and then Buddhism come to China and then mix with Taoism thinking. Then that's what we know today as the Zen Buddhism. So the situation becomes very complex because we should know Zhuangzi doesn't matter what Joe said, it probably later people add on, but still early than Buddhism. And then after Buddhism come to China, then they mix together, and that's what we know today as the Zen Buddhism. And we will talk about Buddhism in the later chapter about this one. So another thing is about Zhuangzi's writing style. It's very different than what we read before. Okay, Confucius has teacher and the student conversation. Dao De Jing just spell out the truth. The Dao can be taught, talk is not real Dao, and the virtue, but the name can be named. It's not real name. Okay, so just without any background, and then Zhuangzi's writing style is very different because he put a lot of fable, put a lot of story, and the story have inside the story they have another story, and the story is a conversation, and inside the conversation have another conversation, and Zhuangzi bring up all the ancient people, Confucius, Laozi, anybody come here to have a conversation, even animal can talk. So this kind of text. So it make to extract the philosophical part of Zhuangzi very difficult unless you read the entire text, and then you have to find out which part is you should consider as literary or literature, which part you have to consider as a philosophy. So that's the difficult part, but it also make reading this text much more interesting. Here, I feel like, reading Zhuangzi is kind of like reading, if you are familiar with Western philosophy, kind of like reading Michel de Montaigne or reading the Nietzsche's writing. Sometimes they talk about things you are not sure, what he is talking about, and the purpose is to make you think. I think that's the reason. So that's about the book, and to answer Joe's question, right? So 道德经, we talked about last time. It has only 5,000 characters, and the Zhuangzi is much longer, as a 65,000 character, more than 10 times than Laozi. Okay, much rich text. And in general, they have the 33 chapter, and then we separate to 3 parts. Inner chapter 1 to 7, traditionally we consider it's written by Zhuangzi, the person. Outer chapter 8 to 22, based on the style of writing and the relationship with inner chapter, in general, okay, we believe it's written by Zhuangzi's disciple or friend or some follower or people with the same time. Okay, then from 23 to 33, so-called the miscellaneous chapter. This one could be later time people add on. Okay, because something like chapter 33 is an excellent writing to go over every single philosophy, so-called under the heaven. It's an excellent writing, but for sure, okay, almost we have a consensus. It's not written by Zhuangzi or written by the any scholar during that time. It must be written much later time, because the context, because the style, because the format, because the logic they are using, that's totally different. But today, we still consider all these 33 chapters as the philosophy of Zhuangzi. They will make our job easier to study philosophy if our focus is on philosophy. Wayne, please.
Yes, I'm having this feeling of deja vu all over again with these different. It's reminded me a lot of the Christian scriptures and the such, where certain texts were written, but then they were edited.
Yeah.
And the such, there's all sorts of
Yeah.
controversy over. I was hoping Taoism would be totally simple, befitting its philosophy. We would just have one text and nothing else.
Well, unfortunately, it's not this way, right? So there's no so-called canon, okay, doing this way. So we only, right now, we only deal with 2,300 years ago. But if we deal with later, we have a neo-Taoism, then situation become more complex. Then we will introduce a person called, I think if you read the text, Feng Youlan talking about a person called Guo Xiang. Okay, so he is a great commentator about Zhuangzi. Okay, but a lot of things he adds on, we don't know that's his philosophy or Zhuangzi's philosophy. That made the situation even worse. But today we try to do, at least I try to do, is make Zhuangzi, this book, 33 chapters, forget about their time, forget about who is the real author. Okay, let's treat this book as a philosophy. Okay, text. Just like today, we treat the Bible, okay, Old Testament and New Testament, as the canon, the scripture. We read it and without thinking about who is the author, and then is that true or not true? We just focus on the text. That's the attitude I try to do today. Joe, please.
Okay, just quickly, Jason. So in the first 7 chapters, are Laozi, Confucius, or anybody else mentioned, or do they come later? This is in reference to a previous question.
Okay, so it's all mentioned, all 33 chapters. Okay, all mentioned about this. But you should not read any, you should not bring Zhuangzi and tell me, Jason, you see, here's the story about Confucius. Okay, I just have to tell you, 0% of the story can be true. Okay, because that's Zhuangzi makeup. Okay, so it also confuses other people when they read Zhuangzi, because in Zhuangzi, they have the Confucius talking a lot of time. But sometimes Confucius is presented as a Taoism master. So to teach the student what's the right thing. But sometimes Confucius just show up as a livestock. Okay, he talk about something and then somebody make fun of Confucius. So sometimes it's very difficult to understand, the text, but that's very interesting to read the text. And I think I'm not sure how many of you attend last year. I probably spent the entire year, okay, go through this 7 chapter. Okay, I didn't present word by word, but myself read word by word, Chinese version and the English version, and try to make a presentation. And that bring me to a different level of understanding. So I will strongly recommend, if you are interested, I think read this 7 chapter, and it's interesting, I think. Okay, Steve, please.
I was just going to say, as you said, like Zhuangzi, the way he writes, he's telling stories, little parables, and I think he's using. I've always thought he used these other historical characters, Confucius, Lao Tzu, etc., and basically as characters.
Yes.
To bounce the ideas off of. So
that's right.
That's the way I have understood it.
That's right. That's correct. Yeah, and some fictionary people. Okay, he talk about 南宫箕子. Okay, so sounds like a very famous Taoist master, but probably we cannot find any record about this person. He mentioned about ancient sage king. Okay, Yu, Yao, Sun. That's the sage king. But for sure, when he talk about sage king, he's a good person. But it's difficult. Sometimes the person already reached the high level, but sometimes still not yet. Okay, so that's why I say I feel it's very difficult to present Zhuangzi philosophy. Okay, and it's to try to organize, extract the philosophical part of his writing is challenging. Okay, so that's why last year I spent almost the whole year to present this 7 chapter. Okay, so this one, we are not going through this one. I just kind of give some title, my own title for each chapter. And if you are interested, you can look at the PowerPoint presentation. I think that this one is, I feel very proud I'm able to find out what's the subject, the main theme of each one, which is very difficult to find out because Zhuangzi's writing is all over the place. It's hard to find. Just like you try to read Michel de Montaigne, and then you try to organize, okay, what's his philosophy, okay, because it's a lot of philosophy, but just don't know how to organize it. I'm quickly talking this one because Guo Xiang has been mentioned in the text, and then I just hope not too confusing to most of the reader, because this person is very important. Okay, and because today's Zhuangzi basically he compiled, because I think traditionally in probably has 52 chapters, and he organized to 33 chapters. So today's reading is based on his organization. Okay, he compiled together, and then he also put his commentary, just like Avicenna is the great commentator of Aristotle. Guo Guo Xiang is the great commentator of Zhuangzi. Personally, I think sometimes he interpreting. Okay, so a lot of time you don't know he is commenting Zhuangzi or Zhuangzi is commenting him. Okay, so I will still use Guo Xiang's commentation comment, but if we can understand by ourselves, I try to avoid Guo Xiang's interpretation. Okay. So I think, okay. So last thing I'd like to read about the historical account about this person, Zhuangzi. Okay, this one is a copy from so-called 史记, the record of great historian. This one is written about 100 years, 100 BC, so which is about 200 years after Zhuangzi. So we can consider well, relatively close and true. Let's assume this. Okay, so Qin way of Chu. Okay, so right now we talk about state of Chu, right? That's let me show the map here. So that's modern day China, and then you can see Confucius is around Lu, this area, and the Zhou dynasty in general, the cultural center is around here on the north part. And the Chu, you can see it's a big state. And this state, basically, they have different culture. Let's bring another layer of difficulty of reading Zhuangzi, because the language is very different than Confucius or Mencius or Moism to read it, because apparently the people on the south part speak different dialogue, and then they write, even use the same character, but write in different style. That's why making the reading, I talk about reading the original text a little bit difficult. So let me back to the historical account. Okay, King Wei of Chu. Okay, that's the feudal lord. Okay, having heard his name, which is Zhuangzi's name. Okay, once sent a messenger with gift to invite him to his state, promising him to make him chief minister. Zhuangzi, however, merely laughed and said to them, to the messenger, right? The gift is valuable. The position is honorable. Do you see the ox raised for the sacrificial ceremony? Okay, during the time, all the state, they have the so-called ancestor ceremony. So in certain time of year or month, you have to slaughter the ox to kind of same as like Judaism tradition, but not burning, but basically slaughter and offer to the ancestor. So after being well fed for many years, it is, I mean, the ox is covered with beautiful clothes and offered to the ancestor temple. Can it still have a chance to go back to itself, right? So you are being treated well, being honored, but the purpose is being sacrificed for the, so same thing, that's Zhuangzi's meaning, okay? So Zhuangzi say, go away, do not defile me. I can enjoy the freedom in my dirty place without taking any governmental position. This is my inspiration of happiness. So here you can see it's totally different attitude than Confucius thinking or traditional Confucius thinking, right? What he mentioned is freedom, okay? He doesn't mind in the dirty place. He doesn't want to go to the shining, famous position, honorable position. What he pursue is happiness. Okay, so that we don't know this story is true or not true, but at least it represent the attitude of Zhuangzi, the person. Yeah. We have Finis.
Yeah, Phineas,
Finis. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. This is reminding me of Diogenes in Greek history.
Yeah, correct. Thank you for bringing Diosony. Okay, so You will see the similarity here. That's true. Okay, so before, okay, so next, so here is the background. So we will go to, for the rest of, let's say 1 hour, okay, I'll go through Zhuangzi's philosophy. And I just have to say it's very difficult to organize Zhuangzi's 33 chapters into a system and talk about philosophy. So I kind of follow Feng Youlan's writing and then follow his way to organize to the 6th way. So before I go through this one, for the person who read the text, is anyone find it's difficult to read for this week? No? Because I find out he has a lot of quoting and without much explanation, so I'm not sure, you know. And they also quote Spinoza a lot, so I'm not sure that's confused people or not, you know. So okay, but anyway, any question before we go move forward? Because right now, let's forget about the Zhuangzi is a real person. He's older than older than Laozi or younger than Laozi, or is who really write this one? What's the historical, what's archaeology discovery? Okay, let's forget about everything. Let's just focus on the philosophy.
Jason,
Yes, Brenda.
I'm sorry, I can't find the hand raise notation on the back, so I just have to interrupt.
Okay.
In the chapter of our book, where it talks about the first phase of Taoism with Chuang-tzu,
Yeah.
the author talks about 3 different levels of Taoism, how it was developed. That the Chuang-tzu level, the first level, he looked into physical escape. You know, you go to the mountains and you're just a recluse. The Tao Te Ching talks about the importance of following the Tao, the way. And then he says that the third level, which is Chuang-tzu, is actually transcending the world. And that he doesn't identify with a self, but he goes, you know, past all of that. So you had mentioned that you did not believe that he came a few hundred years after Laozi, but do you still hold true to this evolutionary development of Taoism? Do you think that, or is this separation not natural?
Okay, let's put it this way. Okay, what I'm talking about, the author of the Tao Te Ching is later than Zhuangzi. I'm talking about the book, the text, the philosophy, is later than Zhuangzi. But the thinking, okay, this kind of idea, okay, probably exists before Zhuangzi. Same as Yangzhu, we don't know what time he exists in this world. Okay, he could be the same time as Zhuangzi, could be later time, could be early time. But this kind of thought, we believe, is on the early time. Okay, so that's why the two system is a little bit different, because the way, the ideal around the people and the person who really write it down on the book. Okay, that's a different thing. So I hope I explained this way. Actually, just that's my reason. But since there's no consensus, so
Yeah,
we can.
thank you.
You
That
can
makes-
have your own thought. Yeah.
That makes sense, though.
Okay,
Thank
as long
you.
as you think makes sense, you don't have to agree. So anyway, let's, if no more question, let's focus on, from now on, let's focus on the philosophy part. So first we talk about de, okay, a Chinese word de. Okay, I think we mentioned this word, okay, in Laozi. Okay, we understand this word in Laozi's Tao Te Ching as power, okay, which is one layer under Tao. Okay. In Confucius, if you read Confucius' Anything, this word also appear many times. But in Confucius, when I do translation, I will translate this word as virtual, okay? Because this word is very, in Confucius term, is very similar to Greek arete, okay? Basic has moral sense on that. For Zhuangzi, you will see it talk about de, okay, same word, but if a different meaning for this word. In Zhuangzi, de means the natural ability. When you were born, okay, when you were nature, you have this ability. So we quote, just one mention about the way we do it. Whenever I put a black text, usually I copy from the book, the text, Feng Youlan's writing, and which is his translation from the original Zhuangzi's text. So here is on Tian Di, okay, which is the chapter, I think it's on chapter 12, I think, okay. At the great beginning, there was not non-being. It had neither being nor name, was that form which come to one. When the one come into existence, there was one but still no form. When things obtained that by which they came into existence, it was called de. Okay, so this one I don't want to explain in the very detailed. Basically, it's Zhuangzi's cosmogony and how does the world come to be. Okay, same as Laozi and the same as all the philosophers will talk about something this, but basically you can get the idea, being, non-being, no name. But important thing is we want to talk about is the, and here's the blue text I copy from Feng Youlan and I highlight as blue. Usually that means Feng Youlan, the author's his own opinion. Okay, thus our de is what makes us what we are. Okay, we are happy when the de or the nature ability of ours is fully and freely exercised. I think the important words fully and freely. That is when your nature is fully and freely developed. That means happiness. So then let's start to read Zhuangzi's story. This one is from famous chapter, I think it's chapter 17, okay, autumn flood, okay, in Chinese called Qiu Sui, and this one is one of the famous chapter, even it's not in the inner chapter, okay. It's a very long chapter, and here talking about, I show the picture, okay, talking about the story, okay, so let's come with Zhuangzi, the typical story. He talked about the spirit of the river, okay. He feel like so proud because the river is huge, you know, and he travel freely, you know, as a spirit of the river, until he traveled to the Northern Sea, and he met the spirit of Northern Sea, okay, which is another guy, okay, another spirit, okay. So of course, the Northern Sea is 10,000 times bigger than river, so he opened his mind. So they have a long conversation. And the philosophy part is during this conversation. So here we just take some part to explain what's the meaning of nature in Zhuangzi. Again, Zhuangzi's text, when you talk about heaven in Zhuangzi, we talk about heaven. I don't want to start another hours-long conversation about what is heaven, okay, how to translate heaven. But put this way, in Confucius and the Laozi, Dao De Jing, heaven is something above, okay, have some religious sense, some powerful sense. Zhuangzi's heaven in general means nature, okay, in this nature, without mankind interferes, non-artificial, let's put it this way. So here's the conversation between the spirit of river and the spirit of Northern Sea. The spirit of the river asks, what is nature? What is name? What is man? Okay, so nature and the man-made, okay, are different, or of nature and of man are two different concepts. So the spirit of Northern Sea said, so here we should treat spirit of Northern Sea as the Taoist teacher. He's teaching us, okay, what is of nature is internal. What is of man is external. The oxen and the horses shall have 4 feet is what is of nature. And the halter should put on a horse head, or a string through ox nose is what is of man. Okay, so horse and ox, there's no string in the nose, there's no halter. Okay, but if you put it on, that's called of man. Hence, it is said, do not overcome what is nature by what is of man. Do not overcome nature's purpose by man's intention. Do not damage the nature by trying to gain more. This is called returning to true nature. Okay, so that's the teaching here. You can see Zhuangzi's teaching through the mouth of spirit of Northern Sea, right? He talking about what is nature, and the nature is happy, bring happy, and then of man is or artificial, is suffering, is pain. So we shall return to true nature. So here's Feng Youlan's comment, right? Following what is of nature is the source of all happiness and the goodness. So he tried to tie happiness and the goodness together. While following what is of man is the source of all pain and the evil. So also tie the pain and the evil together, kind of like most of the tradition doing this way. Then the final goal of nature is talking about happiness. And you will see the happiness concept hardly show in Confucius' teaching, but in Zhuangzi's teaching, happiness is very important. So here, that's another example, and it's also in chapter 8, talking about the so-called webbed toe, okay, 偏母, okay, so that's the chapter. That's Feng Youlan's comment. Things are different in their nature, and their nature ability is also not the same. What they share in common is that they are all equally happy when they have a full and free exercise of their nature ability. So the example is here. So he talked about the duck, right? The duck legs are short, but if we try to lengthen them, the duck will feel pain. The crane's legs are long. If we try to shorten them, the crane will feel grief. Therefore, we do not to amputate what is by nature long, nor to lengthen what is by nature short. So others, Feng Youlan didn't include, and so I make my own translation for the following text. I think that's important. That's why I added on. So the text continue after this story about crane and the duck. Talk about no worry about their nature. Okay, the presumption is that moral. Okay, so the reason Zhuangzi keep talking about what's nature, what is not nature, he want to talk about is moral, okay, morality. And I think his target is Confucius, okay, without naming Confucius, the person, the school, he used this story to criticize Confucius. The presumption is that moral are not nature of humanity. For to how much anxiety does the exercise of them give rise? So he's talking about, look at the people who exercise Confucius, okay, teaching, so-called Ren and the Yi, right? We learned that a few weeks ago. Confucius considers the most important. You think they worry so much? Are they happy? Okay, so that's Zhuangzi's teaching about nature. Okay. So that's the first part of his philosophy. So I will stop for a few minutes. If you have a question, comment. And the reason he talk about nature, because he has his own political thinking on that. Joe, please. Are you unmuted?
You asked earlier if anyone had trouble with the text. I have trouble with some of the philosophy that goes with the text. So the idea that nature is always good, that's belied by what we actually see. I mean, famines are not good. That's a part of nature. Tsunamis are not good. There's a whole bunch of things in nature. Now, I wouldn't call them evil, but we're also a part of nature. Why are we evil when we do similar terrible things?
I don't know. That's a good challenge for that, and but I can try to answer your question. Okay, we are talking about nature. Okay, we are not talking the innate, be a person, a bird, a duck, crane. We are not talking about nature disaster. Okay, and then in a way, nature disaster, and the same as the sun, breeze, raining, they're also doing good for the people. Okay, so let's put this way. Okay, so Zhuangzi's thinking is that's the nature. In general, we can enjoy the nature. Okay, and then we add too much human effort, moral, okay, industrialization. That's if we have something which damage your nature. Okay, let's put this way. Okay, and without further argument, I know it's very difficult to argue. And finish, please.
Oh, I think I can respond a bit to that as well.
Okay, great.
I feel like it was saying when nature's able to fully express itself, then it's happy. And so it's nature, like cranes and ducks, are doing their best to survive and thrive on this planet, but it's not like a perfect system. So nature does really well, but things, it's sort of trying to keep balance. It's not perfect at keeping balance. And the way I'm looking at it is that we're so closely related to the ducks and the cranes that if we affect them, we're actually hurting ourselves. So if we can facilitate the living nature to be healthier, it'll also feed back well onto us.
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, I think your comment, I remember chapter 3. Okay, Zhuangzi give an example. Okay, so he talk about the birds being put in the cage. Okay, so it's a shelter from the outside damage, and you have enough food. Okay, unlike the birds outside the cage, right? You face some damage, some natural disaster, and you have to work so hard to get food. Which one is happier? Okay, that's another question, right? Some people may say, "Oh, I was happy in the cage," so because.
Oh, did he have an answer to that?
Huh?
Did he have an answer to that?
No, he has no answer. He just posed a question. That's many times.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, and I will assume he will agree with me, which is outside the cage because he focused so much on freedom. Okay, so Mark and Steve.
Yeah, I have a comment about nature. I thought that was actually really interesting and insightful. I think for me, something that's important is to remember the historical context when this was written during the Warring States period. Like for us modern people, especially in the United States, maybe not in some other parts of the world, when we think about a catastrophe, we think about an earthquake or a tornado or a hurricane or something like that. In the Warring States period, I think a lot of people would gladly trade like an earthquake or a hurricane for like the invading army like rampaging through their country. So I think in this time period when there's so much war and chaos, I think people are really their fear is mostly directed at people and not at the natural world. So to me, that kind of helps explain the context of why nature is exalted so highly, kind of in contrast to humanity in Taoism and not in Confucianism. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Steve. Okay, then I have to move on. So okay, Steve, please.
I was just going to react to the comment about tsunami and sort of an extreme philosophical reaction to your extreme natural example. But why do you think the tsunami's bad? Oh, well, because it washed away my house. Well, the extreme Taoist answer might be, well, then you need to live better in nature with the nature of tsunami. And if that bothers you, don't live near the shore or build a stronger house. You know, the nature's doing its thing. The way to live is to live in concert with it. Again, extreme philosophical answer to an extreme natural occurrence, but I think that would be a way you might that might be answered.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, so we have our different thought. So let's move on. Okay, so let's talk about political. Okay, so again, okay, chapter 18. Okay, so so you may ask when I talk about political, why you talk about birds, right? So the seabirds of Lu, that's also another famous story. Okay, so let me read the story. Story is short, but there's a long comment on that. So formerly a seabird alighted in the suburban country of Lu. Lu is during the warring state, the state of Lu. The Duke, the Marquis, went out to meet it. The birds brought it back to the ancestral temple. Okay, ancestral temple is the most holy, most best place in the state because apparently he loved the seabird. Okay, and prepared to banquet it there. And the Zhu Sao was performed to offer the music. Okay, Zhu Sao you can consider as Jiu Sao. That's one of the most beautiful music played over there. And ox, sheep, and the pig were killed to supply as the food. The bird, however, looked at everything with dim eyes and was very sad. It did not venture to eat a single bit of flesh, nor to drink a single cupful. And in 3 days, it died. Okay, so that's the short story. Anybody know why he talk about state seabird of Lu? Because during the warring state, whenever they talk about something funny, they use the state of Song. Okay, but here you talk about the state of Lu. Anybody know why choose Lu? No, nobody know. Because Lu is state of Lu is Confucius' hometown. Okay, so here it's pointed to Confucius. That's why it's very unusual when people during that time talking about funny story, stupid behavior, they talk about state of Song. But this one talking about state of Lu because that's Confucius' hometown. Okay.
Whose hometown was Song?
Huh?
Whose hometown was Song?
Probably nobody, that's why. I don't know, just like, you know, tradition, it mentions like talking about the people from the Song doing something. So, okay, so here's a comment. I probably will not read all of them, but okay. The Marquis was trying to nourish the birds with what he used for himself, right? And not with the nourishment proper for the bird. They who were nourished birds they ought to be nourished, should be blah blah blah. Then let me jump. So okay, so he talked about it was distress to the birds to hear men speak. What did it care for all noise and the babble, right? And if the music of a Jiu Sao and what's that will perform in the world, right? So if you play, basically talking about people like this food, like this music, right? You play the beautiful music, people all come to listen. But you play the music in the wilderness, in the outside, right? The birds will run away, fish will dive in deep, all the animals run away because they don't like this music. So what you like is not necessary other people like. I think that's what you want to talk about. And then that's why he want to talk about political part, right? He talk about, that's all I translate from Zhuangzi's writing, right? Fishes live and the men die in water. They all different in constitution and therefore differ in their like and dislike. Hence, it was the ancient sage, okay, when he mentioned ancient sage, that means the good thing, did not require from all the same ability, nor demand the same performances. They gave names according to the reality of what was done and give their approbation where it was spatially suitable. This was what was called the method of universal adoption and of sure success. Universal adoption, that's he's talking about. Important thing he talking about, they gave name according to the ability of what was done. 名止于实. Okay, that would be opposite than what Confucius talked about, rectification of name, right? So you get this name, you have match this name. So Zhuangzi, in a way, is reverse. You are Jason, you give name Jason. You are big guy, give name big guy. You are short guy, the name is short guy. So you don't try to set a standard for everybody. That's the thinking here. And then that leads to political thinking, which I think we all familiar with. Okay, the Taoism thinking in politics, right? It's 无为, non-action, right? So that's a quote on another chapter, chapter 11. It's a strange word called 为, that means that it alone. So he said, I have heard of letting mankind alone, but not of governing mankind. Okay, so Zhuangzi refused to use the word governing. So when you govern, you are letting mankind or letting people alone. Letting alone springs from the fear that people will pollute their innate nature and set aside their de. Okay, so the big fear is we don't worry about the people become corrupted or become evil. Only thing we worry is people will pollute their innate nature and set aside their de, which their nature ability. When people do not pollute their innate nature, nor set aside their de, then is there need of government of mankind. So that's toward to the concept, same concept of 无为, similar to what 道德经 talking about. So here I copy from Feng Youlan's writing. I think that's interesting. If one fails to leave people alone and tries instead to rule them with laws and the institution, the process is like putting a halter around a horse's neck or a string through an ox's nose. It is also like lengthening the legs of the ducks or shortening those of the cranes. What is nature and spontaneous is changed into something artificial, which is called by Zhuangzi, overcoming what is nature by what is of name. This result is misery and unhappiness. Okay, so that's the political thinking. And later here, I think Feng Youlan make a good comparison. Even Zhuangzi and the Laozi, 道德经 I'm talking about, okay, both advocate government through non-government, which is 无为, right? But the reason are a little bit different. If you are interested to know why they are different here, is Laozi emphasize the general principle, which I call natural law. Okay, I mentioned at the beginning, reversing the movement of Tao. The Tao always come back, right? When you everything to the extreme, it will coming back. So the more one governs, okay, the less one achieve, okay, the desire is right. So you should let people alone because that's the Tao. Okay, the Tao is working this way. It push too much, it will come back. So the best way is not push it. Okay, let it alone. That's Laozi or 道德经's idea. Okay, through the concept of Tao. But Zhuangzi's concept is through De, okay, because it's nature ability. So Zhuangzi emphasized the distinction between what is of nature and what is of man. The more the former, which is the nature, is overcome by the latter, which is of man, the more there will be misery and unhappiness. So the nature already give you enough happiness. The more thing you add on, okay, you may talking about, oh, we should love our country, we should work for our country, we should make our country as a strong country. So all these one are men add up, which cause the problem, unhappiness. Okay, that's the both Zhuangzi and Laozi have the idea of Wu Wei as a political thinking, but their reason is slightly different. That's the here we want to make. Okay, so before we move to another important subject called death, and we will pause for question, comment. Okay, okay, finish, please.
This just came up before. So there's Wu Wei, and then there's Wu Wei Zi, which is Shizandra. It's a type of it's like called 5 flavored fruit, and it's called Wu Wei Zi. And it's spelled.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Do you know if there's some sort of overlap in the Wu Wei, or do they mean something completely different?
No, I'm not familiar with the Wu Wei. Okay, is a food?
Yeah, it's called Shizandra. It's a Chinese berry.
I'm sorry, I don't know this one, and I would believe it's not related.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
thanks.
So never mind. Okay, if you find out something, then text me so I can find. Okay.
That's a 无位置，无位置。
Oh, okay, that's a different spelling. Okay, different words. Okay. Okay, so let's move on. I think this one is important, even that's the subject a lot of people try not to talk. Okay, but Zhuangzi deal with this one. Laozi didn't deal, and Laozi didn't talk about death in his text. Confucius refused to answer the question about after death. Okay, and by Confucius focus on worship your ancestor, treat your dead parents or grandparents as they are alive. Okay, that's Confucius' attitude to death. And when your parents die, you should mourn for 3 years. Okay, that's Confucius talking about death, and that's how during that time people are practiced about death. So here I'm going to introduce 3 stories involves death. First, about death of Laozi. Let's assume he is Zhuangzi's teacher or some Taoist master. And second, deal with the death of Zhuangzi's wife. And the third one will deal with Zhuangzi himself. He died. Okay, so that's a 3 story about that. So when Laozi died, okay, Qin Shi, let's say he's Laozi's close friend, went to mourn over him. He uttered 3 years and went out. A disciple asked him, saying, "Were you not a friend of the master, the Laozi?" And Qin Shi answered, "Yes, I am." Okay, I was his friend. Okay, if so, is it proper to offer you a morning meeting in this way? Have done? Yes, that's his answer. At first, I thought that the other mourner are his men. Now I know they are not. When I went into mourn, there were old persons weeping as if they lost their children, and the young one as if that of their mother. And this person assembled there afterwards, dropped tears which are not to be expected. This is violate the principle of nature and increase the emotion of man, forgetting what we have received from nature. These were called the ancient, the penalty of violation of principle of nature. When the master came, it was because he had the occasion to be born. When he went, he simply followed the natural course. Those who are quiet at the proper occasion and follow the natural course cannot be affected by sorrow or joy. They are considered by the ancient as the men of the God who were released from the bondage. I'd like to highlight this one. Basically talk about bondage, the concept. We talk about happiness, but everyone will face death. At least we face our close people's death. Okay, how do we deal with this one? Here, keep talking about the principle of nature. Okay, and then Laozi, the person he the occasion to be born. So people be born and the death. It's a natural way, and nothing we can do on that. Okay. So if you are crying, you are suffer too much. Okay. And the Zhuangzi called the penalty of violation the principle of nature. Okay. So people die, it's a nature. And then if you crying too much, just like he described, just like mother crying, like woman crying like lost her children, and then old people crying like lost your children, and then blah blah blah. This kind of crying is wrong. Okay, so that's the first story. Second story is very famous, and some people use this one to criticize Zhuangzi. Okay, but let's consider this one is a fable. So his point is here. Here is when Zhuangzi's wife died, and Huizi, if you remember, is a philosopher in the school of Nan. Okay, and he showed up in Zhuangzi many, many times, and he always have debate with Zhuangzi as his close friend. Huizi went to condole with him, and finding him squatted on the ground, drumming on the basin and singing, and said to him, when a wife has lived with her husband and brought up children and then die in her old age, not to wail for her is enough. Okay, just like you don't have to cry. Okay, she has full life. But why are you, when you go on to drum on the basin and sing, it's not an excessive or strange demonstration. Are you doing too much? Okay, it's not only not crying, you are drumming and singing. And Zhuangzi replied, it is not so. When she first died, was it possible for me to be singular and not affected by the event? He was sad, right? When I reflect on the commencement of her being, she had not yet been born to life. Not only had she no life, but she had no bodily form. Not only had she no bodily form, but she had no breath. So here he talking about life, bodily form, and qi, breath, qi. Okay, so he started thinking about, is that the same as before her birth? You don't cry, okay? You don't feel sad before a person was born, right? You cry, you feel sad after the person was born. So when the people die, is that the same as he's not born yet? I think that's his question here, right? So Zhuangzi continue, right? During the intermingling of the waste and the dark chaos, they'll enter a chain. Let me see. They'll ensue a change, and there was breath. Another change, there was bodily form. Another change, there come birth and the life, right? So here, there was now a change again, and she died. So the cycle is you have a breath, then you have a body, then you born. That's your life. And the another cycle is you die, and then your bodily form disappear, then they have no qi, right? No breath. So that's the natural cycle, right? The relation between these things is like possession of 4 seasons, from spring to autumn, from winter to summer. There now she lie with her face up, sleeping in the great chamber. I talk about her coffin, right? And if I were to fall sobbing and going on the wall for her, I should think that I did not understand what was appointed. Therefore, restrain myself. So he thinks through this one. He feel like it's not sad. Next, Zhuangzi's death. Of course, he cannot write this one. Must be his disciple write this one. When Zhuangzi was about to die, his disciple signified their wish to give him a grand burial, which is important in Confucius' teaching, right? You have buried in a certain level, all right, depend on your social status. Okay? And Zhuangzi apparent as a great master, so his disciple want to give him a grand burial. So Zhuangzi said, I shall have a heaven and the earth for my coffin, okay, the sun and the moon for my two round symbol of jade. Because when you bury people, you put the jewelry, put the gem on that, pearl and the jewels, right? The star and the constellation for my pearls and the jewels. And all things assistant as my mourners. Okay, you don't need the mourners. Okay, around the thing they have a dog, they have everything. That's all my mourners. Will not the provision for my burial be complete? What will you add to that? So I have everything, right? So you don't have to prepare anything. The disciples say, we are afraid the crow and the kite will eat our master. Your body will be eaten by crows and the kites. And Zhuangzi's reply is, above, the crows and the kites will eat me. Below, the more cricket and the ants will eat me. So even you bury me, right? Turn out my body will be eaten by bacteria in today's sense, or okay, by the cricket and the ants, right? To take from those and give these will only show your partiality. So is that unfair? You take away my body from crow and the kites and give to ants and cricket. Okay, why you worry about crow and the kites more than the cricket and the ants? So that's the three story in the Zhuangzi.
So, Jason, are these really examples of Wu Wei? What he means, what is meant by do nothing? Don't interfere with the natural process. Is that fair to say these are examples of Wu Wei?
I think it's interesting you see this way, and in a way it's in the same logic. But I have to say Wu Wei more talking about in the political sense. But in the same logic, you try not to interfere too much. For example, people die. You should not interfere too much. Let's put it this way. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so the reason he want to talk about, I'm not saying I disagree with Brenda, you talk about this is Wu Wei, but here, according to the text, Feng Youlan's text, Zhuangzi talking about this, his main purpose is talking about, what he want to talk about is emotion and the reason. Okay, so I think here is interesting. I think I better spend some time to explain, because in Western tradition, we may see in the so-called continental, we talk about rationality, and then which you go with reason. And then so-called British philosophy is more on the empirical side and deal with intuition, okay, emotion, this kind is more important. So another comparison with David Hume on the English side and across the ocean is Immanuel Kant, okay, talk about rationality. But here, the topic emotion and the reason, according to Feng Youlan and according to Zhuangzi, these two are coexist, okay? Doesn't mean you have no emotion, you just use the reason to control your emotion. And I think later in a few chapters when we deal with Neo Taoism, we will see how does people put this concept in practice. Okay, so in a way is you enjoy your emotion, but you don't let emotion damage you. And the way to do it is use reason to control it. So here I copy a few sentences from Feng Youlan's writing. I think it's interesting. It is true that one is happy when one has full and free exercise of one's natural ability. But there are many ways in which exercise is abstracted. For instance, there is death, when is the end of all human activity. There is disease, right? There is old age, which all cause trouble. on page 108, okay, talk about to the extent that the other mourner feels sorrow, to that extent they suffer. Their suffering was the penalty of violation the principle of nature. The mental torture inflicted upon the man by his emotion is sometimes just as severe as by any physical punishment. But by the use of understanding, man can reduce his emotion. So the idea is if you understand the death process, okay, it's a natural process, then man can reduce his emotion, which that time the emotion is hurting you. Okay, the Taoism maintain the sage who has complete understanding of the nature of things thereby has no emotion. However, does not mean they lack sensibility. Rather, it means he is not disturbed by the emotion and enjoy what may be called the peace of the soul. Okay. So here is the peace of soul. So if you understand this one, you can control your emotion. And here, I think that's also interesting. Feng Youlan like to mention, I think not only in this text, many other Feng Youlan's writing, he like to mention Spinoza with Zhuangzi's reading. And Spinoza, he meant the book Ethic, which is it's difficult to read book, have a 5 part and start from, I always suggest if you want to read this one, don't read from beginning because it start talking about God being, and most of people cannot finish the part 1. So you can jump from direct from part 5, okay, will be easier. That's my opinion. So here, Spinoza is talking about, first he's talking about God, and his God is not Christian God. He's a monism. Okay, the entire world, the being that's equivalent to God, very similar to Zhuangzi's thinking. The being, the entire world, okay, is the highest. Okay. So second part, he talked about the knowledge. How can we have knowledge? Imagination, reason, intuition. Part 3, he start to analyze the nature of emotion. So part 3 is very long chapter talking about crying, said all kind of like reading psychological book. And the part 4 start talking about the suffer, human bondage. He called it the human bondage. And the last one by intellect, okay, which is the highest intelligent and associated with God, understand you can escape this human bondage. So in this sense, Feng Youlan, I think if you read the text, he has another long quote from Spinoza. And in this sense, he think, Feng Youlan think, Zhuangzi's concept about death, emotion, and the reason is very similar to Spinoza's ethic when he write this book. So that's his part here. Okay. So before I move on, I may have to skip the perfect man or just quickly then, because I think epistemology part is quite important. So I probably will jump directly to knowing, okay, epistemology. So question, comment? Joe, please.
So Jason, I think I'd be very concerned if I was with someone who had no feeling if he just watched something terrible happen. And we're not all sages, and the vast majority of us are not going to get anywhere near where Chuang-tzu was. So this notion, I'd be concerned. And we all mourn differently. And the idea that you could lose someone really close to you and basically say that's the way it is, I'm not sure I'd want to be around that person.
Yeah, I also agree with you, and then same as all the philosophy, if we follow strictly, that would be terrible. The situations I like to suggest is Zhuangzi's writing, just like Nietzsche's writing. He talk about something, okay, and a lot of time he want you think about in this way, okay. And can you really do that? Is that make sense when your close one die and start to sing, dancing, celebrate? it doesn't make sense. It's not this way. But one concept I like to learn from it is we all have emotion, and the proper express your emotion is healthy. But a lot of time we overexpress. And a lot of time overexpress not because you really said, because of the social norm. Okay, look at the Confucius. You talk about 3 years mourning for your parents. Okay, is that too long? Okay, I'm not sure. Okay, so does my father pass away? If he know he want me crying for 3 years, probably not. So I think a lot of things, if you look at on the social background, okay, it may be look at different. And another way to look at during that time, probably in the warring state, you see a lot of deaths. Okay, how to deal with this death? Probably another recipe for that. Okay, I only have to say this way. I know people naturally have a different tendency. That's about my observation. People are naturally tendency to like Confucius teaching or like Taoism teaching, and then, but I think that's why we are here. We try to understand different school. Finish, please.
Yeah, I heard a story related to that. Really quick, it was basically there was a monk trying to get enlightened, and someone agreed to like house him and feed him. And so she waited and waited, and then after like 5 years, she wanted to test him because she was like feeding him and housing him, and so she sent to him like a beautiful young woman and had her go like give him a hug and like just like get close to him. And she's like, okay, so what did you feel? He's like, oh, I felt nothing. Like, there was that didn't, nothing for me, right? And she's like, okay, yeah, get off my property. That's not what enlightenment is. It's about you should have felt like how amazing it is to be next to this young, beautiful woman, and then sort of like brought that under control or like had it in balance rather than letting it overwhelm you. So that was a story related to what you're talking about.
Yeah, thank you for providing the story, and then we can have a deal more story. And when we talk about Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, okay, so Zen Buddhism kind of like have this kind of concept, okay, and I believe it's influenced by Zhuangzi's thinking, right, and associates with religious thinking. Okay, so how to deal with it. And then another book, Confucius schools, so-called Doctrine of the Mean, okay, also talk about emotion. And his emotion is more on the social aspect than the happiness of the person. Okay. So, okay, I'm going to jump to epistemology part. Okay, more story. Okay, this one also a famous story. Okay, this one is the autumn frog. Okay, so here talking about a frog in a shallow well said to a turtle from the eastern sea. Okay, so the frog feel very proud. He is the king of this well. So he say, "How I enjoy myself! I dip up the wall of this well. I enter into the water and rest on the broken tiles. I draw my legs together, keep my chin up. When I have got to the mud, I dive till my feet are lost, and turning around, I see the shrimp, crab, tadpole. None of them can do like me. Now he's the best in the well. Moreover, I have entire command of the water and enjoy resting in this shallow well. It is the greatest pleasure. Why don't you come and join me?" Okay. And the turtle of the Eastern Sea found his right knee caught before he put his left feet because the well is too small. He cannot fit in. On this, he hesitated, drew back, and told the frog about the sea. He started to explain. "Oh, okay, my home is a sea. It's 800 yards wider. The depth is so deep." And what the story want to tell you is a frog in a whale cannot be talked with about the sea, right? He is confined in the limit of this hole, okay? An insect of the summer cannot be talked with about ice. it knows nothing beyond its own season, because some insect only live very short, from spring to summer, and die. You try to explain to the insect what's the snow scene, what's the ice look like, has no way to describe, because he only lived for this short time, right? A scholar of limited view cannot be taught with the Tao. He is bounded by the teaching. Okay, so what is he talking about? The scholar could be Confucian scholar, right? Because you are being limited, or the social norm, or the social thinking, and then it's hard to understand, okay, the world outside, just like insect of the summer, or like a frog in a whale. And here, it's kind of like Republic, right? Plato's Republic, book 7, which is not exactly the same, but since the author talk about this, it kind of like Plato talking about, we all see is just opinion, right? We only see the shadow here, and the real thing is until you are unbounded, go outside to see. That's the sun, that's the real world, right? So that's the real world, but that's not really, really the real world. The real world is a form. You have to go outside. Only the philosopher can jump out, go outside. I would not say they are the same, but basics. Plato talk about what we see is illusion, and you have to become a philosopher to know the ultimate truth, right? So that's the concept. Okay, similar concept in the story of frog in the whale is trying to explain, okay, about this concept. Here, okay. So I probably will skip this one. For the person who read this one, there's a translation problem, and then in the Feng writing, he keep talking about 齐物论, talk something, 齐物论. So please remember, when he say 齐物论, it's not a person. He talk about the chapter 2, okay, in Zhuangzi text, chapter 2 called 齐物论, which translate as on equality of thing. Okay, so here the concept is here. I'm not going to read the text, but the concept here is talking about the music of human, music of earth, and the music of heaven. So that set the conversation between a master and the disciple. Okay, I have to agree. Chapter 2, 齐物论, or on equality of thing, is the most difficult part of Zhuangzi. So if you try to read Zhuangzi, just be careful on this one, because most of people finish chapter 1, the happy wandering, and they are happy. They say, oh, that's a wonderful story, and start to read the chapter 2, and then you stuck there. So most of people just haven't finished chapter 2. So my suggestion is read chapter 1 and jump to chapter 3, talking about the cook din, who do that. Then enjoy the more story, and when you have time, then go back to chapter 2. So that's the suggestion here, and it's very difficult to read, and very, I should not say boring, but the conversation is very, very long. So I just make it short here. Here, talk about the music of human, music of earth, and music of heaven. So music of human, that's simple. He want to talk about is our daily world, okay, our language, speech. Music of earth, okay, if you be quiet, you can hear the wind blowing, okay, thundering, the birds chirping, okay, all these one are the nature noise or voice. That's he called music of earth. And then what is music of heaven? Okay, and the master didn't answer. Okay, so the question here is, remember, heaven in Zhuangzi's writing means nature. Nature is all being. We all belong to this big nature. In Spinoza's idea, it's being. We are part of this being. That's in the whole, the entirety of the world. So all the sound, music we can hear because we are outside. Okay. People talk because you are outside. You are outside the birds, so you can hear the birds. But if you are inside, which is heaven, you cannot hear the music. So that's he want to talk about. So we are part of this heaven. Unlike Confucius talking about heaven is high above, kind of like control you. So that's he want to talk about. So here I will move to opinion, basically talking about right and wrong. Okay, everything is opinion, and then so here Feng Youlan want to talk about this shows all distinction of right and wrong is due to opinion. What is affirmed by one may be denied by another. In another way, it's in a way you can see as Pythagoras, right? The sophist Pythagoras, right? Man is the measure of all things, right? There's no truth. Okay, basics is all, everything is opinion. Okay, so the moral will become which one work better. Okay, instead of what is right and wrong, or what is true or false, right? So that's kind of concept they want to talk about. So start from the epistemology. How do we know? Through the language and the Tao. And here is writing here. Okay, enlightenment. I think here also talk about it the same as Taoism. Okay, so I think last time someone asked about the enlightenment is the same as Buddhism enlightenment. Okay, my answer is no. I have another answer, which is still no. Okay, based on the Chinese character. So this enlightenment is, if you can recognize Chinese, is sun and the moon. That means you see by light, Platonic kind of enlightenment. Okay, you see. Okay, Buddhism enlightenment. Okay, Satori in Japanese. Okay, is by heart. Okay, you by your heart, your mind, you understand. That's Buddhism enlightenment. So we'll talk about this one and later when we deal with Buddhism philosophy. So here I want to read what this text is talking about. Tao is obscured by partiality, which is true or false. Speech is obscured by eloquence, right and wrong. So basics on your argument, okay? So the result is affirmation and the denial of the Confucianist and the Moism. So you can see Confucianism and the Moism is a popular school there. And the next time we will deal with Moism again. Okay, that's the Moism during that time. They become very argumentative. Okay, they put a lot of effort in logic. So next subject is so-called the later Moism, which we talk about logic. Okay, so Confucian and the logic. Okay, the one regarding as right and what the other regard as wrong, and regarding as wrong and what the other regard as right. If we are to affirm what those two schools both deny and to deny what they both affirm, there is nothing better than to use the light of reason. Okay, so here it's called enlightenment. So then you can ask, right, what's the step-by-step process to become enlightenment? Then I'm sorry, I probably don't have good answer. Just like you try to read all the Platonic dialogue, right? How can I reach the form, the idea, right? Escape and give. I'm not sure, but Plato give you a good idea, step by step, how to do it. But all philosophers try to do is give you a goal, which is you can enlighten. Same as Buddhism, talking about enlightenment by your heart And how to do it, we are not sure, but at least we know that's the direction. So I will stop here, then I will spend the last few minutes talking about the last part. And I think that's important, which is Tao, because we are dealing with Taoism, but we haven't dealt with talk about Tao yet, unlike Tao Te Ching by Laozi, which start with Tao, and we haven't dealt with Tao yet. So here I like to talk about this. I think let me finish this one, then we open up for some questions. So this text also from chapter 2, okay, equalitative thing. This one is very famous text, and then for 1,000 years, it's very difficult to understand. But let me try to read. Okay, it is said in Qi Wu Lun on equality of things. You know, the possible is possible, the impossible is impossible. The Tao makes things, and they are what they are. What are they? They are what they are. What are they not? They are not what they are not. Everything is something and is good for something. There is nothing which is not something or is not good for something. Thus, it is that there are roof, slate, and the pillar, ugly and the beauty, the peculiar and the extraordinary. All this by means of the Tao are united and they become one. So here, although all things are different, they are alike in their all they all constitute something and are good for something. They are equally come from the Tao. Therefore, from the viewpoint of Tao, things, though different, they are united and become one. So here, he talking about actually you have no way to distinguish things. Beautiful, ugly, okay, existing, non-existent, they all undistinguishable, okay? So they all become one. But more important is this one is not like God or some higher unity, okay? That's very clear in Zhuangzi's thinking. When we read Laozi's Tao Te Ching, constantly people ask, okay, then tell me what is Tao, okay? And then basically no answer, okay? Because in the entire Tao Te Ching 5,000 character, the Tao appear many, many times, but there's no clear explanation. Where is Tao or what is Tao? And here, at least in Zhuangzi, give us some answer here. Go ahead. I will read this part. Okay. Dongguozi asked Zhuangzi. Okay, so Zhuangzi appeared. So of course, Zhuangzi is the master. Okay, what is the so-called Tao? Zhuangzi said, everywhere. Okay, Dongguozi asked, specify an instance of it. Be specific. Okay, then Zhuangzi said, it is in the end. How can Tao be anything so low? And Zhuangzi said, it is in the panic grass. I mean, he means the grass. Okay, how can it still be lower? And Zhuangzi said, it's in the earthware tile. Okay, it's on the ground. Okay, then Dongguozi asked, how can it still be lower? And the Zhuangzi's answer, it is in experiment. Okay, okay, and then this is Zhuangzi met no reply. So this becomes famous. Okay, Tao is in excrement. Okay, so Zhuangzi, for the conclusion, your question does not touch the fundamental of Tao. You should not specify any particular thing. There is not a thing without Tao. There are three terms: complete, all-embracing, and the whole. These three names are different, but denote the same reality. All refer to one thing, which is Tao. Okay. So that's the Zhuangzi's answer, Tao. So personally, I would like to see Tao as everyday life. Okay, everything, every day, that's you can see the Tao. Okay, and that probably that's the Zhuangzi's understand. But you could have your interpretation by reading the text yourself. And here I will say this one could be the final, okay, presentation, final page I want to talk about. And I find out it's quite interesting and bring one of the typical, oh no, this one is not the last one. Okay, last two. So here, that's another story talking about Confucius visiting Laozi. Right? So of course, you know this story cannot be true. Okay, so you can imagine, then if the story is talking about Confucius visit Laozi, then it must be the Laozi teach Confucius, right? So that's the teaching from Laozi to Confucius. The universe is the unity of all things. If we attain this unity and identify ourselves with it, then the members of our body are but of so much dust and dirt, while life and the death, end and beginning, are but a succession of day and the night, which cannot disturb our inner peace. We must thus share, how much less shall we be troubled by worldly gain and loss, good luck and bad luck. So it kind of, excuse me, talking about Zhuangzi resolve the problem with the inner peace. Okay, that life, death, gain and loss, good luck and bad luck, which has not much difference if you keep your inner peace on that. So here, that's a blue text from Feng writing. The Zhuangzi solved the original problem of the early Taoists simply by abolishing it. This is really the philosophical way of solving problems. Philosophy gives no information about matter of fact, and so cannot solve any problem in a concrete and physical way. It cannot, for example, help man either to gain longevity or defy death, nor can it help him to gain rich or avoid poverty. What it can do, however, is to give man a point of view from which he can see that life is no more than death and the loss is equal to gain. What the practical point of view, philosophy is useless, but it can give us a point of view which is useful. I think that's the probably can answer a lot of Taoism opponents' question. Okay, why we reading this, right? It, in a way, this philosophy is totally useless, but in a way, it provides you a point of view. You start to see things in a different way. But this kind of point of view is the usefulness of the useless philosophy. Okay, that's pretty. And the usefulness of useless is also one of the teaching in Zhuangzi's philosophy. So this one is the final. Okay, so it brings to Confucius and his student Yan Hui. If you are familiar with Confucius analog, okay, you will know Yan Hui is Confucius' favorite student, and he died early, and Confucius always praised him. So here it set up the conversation between Yan Hui as a student and Confucius, and you will see who is more Taoism here. So Yan Hui said, I have made some progress. Okay, the background is Confucius is the teacher, right? And then he talked about Ren, the human heartedness, Yi, righteousness, social norm, okay, rituals, okay, music, okay, the ancient sage, okay, all kinds of social situation. So Yan Hui started to say, I have made some progress. Okay, Confucius said, what do you mean? Okay. And Yan Hui said, I have forgotten human hardness and righteousness. Okay, that's the important teaching, Confucius teaching. And Yan Hui said, I forgot. Confucius said, very well, but that is not enough. Okay, so Yan Hui go back to study. Okay, another day, Yan Hui again So Confucius and said, I have made some progress. What do you mean? Confucius said, I have forgotten rituals and the music, replied Yan Hui. And very well, but that is not enough, Confucius. So Yan Hui already forgot another important teaching, rituals and music. Another day, Yan Hui come again, see Confucius and said, I have made some progress. What do you mean? Confucius said, I sit in forgetfulness, replied Yan Hui. So we stop here. Okay, so I think that's a lot of you to think, right? So why you forgot, okay, think is good. But a lot of time, we are learning, the purpose of learning, we just try to unlearn something, okay? You just have to forget something, then that means you really understand. Let's put it this way. If you really understand, that means you have to truly forget. Okay, one example is you learn how to ski or you learn how to swim, right? And the coach will always tell you, move your right leg, move your leg end, and you have to up, not too high, not too low. If you still remember all this movement, you will never be learn, never know, until one day you forget all this kind of detail. Then you are truly know. And the truly know means you really reach the sit-in forgetfulness. So I will stop here about the Zhuangzi. I know it's a lot, and then it's very difficult to prepare this part. I have to be honest on this part because there's too many things, and then different people may have a different understand about this rich text. So, Joe, please.
So the biggest difficulty I'm having, Jason, I appreciate this because I've never actually paid a great deal of attention to him, but he spends so much, or they spend so much time refuting Confucianism and Laozi and the other things. It's almost like, why do they have to prove that? If they're really one with the Tao, why do they have to go about, saying, well, you shouldn't follow this, or, look at it this way? I mean, shouldn't they just be walking on another plane?
Okay, thank you to bring up. I think that's I have to admit. Okay, so it could be myself reading in this way. Okay, because I'm feel he refused Confucius, and your question is totally right. Okay, if you read Taoism, the Tao Te Ching is less about Confucius. Okay, it never mentioned the name. Okay, but here it mentioned the name. So I believe one is my bias. Second is another thing is later people add on, okay, and they have this kind of thinking on there. I think you are right. And another thing could be your problem, right? Because you could be more on the Confucius thinking. So when you read this one, you feel, okay, he is talking against, and you get the point, right? So for the people who doesn't have the background of Confucius thinking, or doesn't have that kind of thinking, the social norm, moral thinking, may not feel this way. So again, that's just my opinion, but I think it's great that you talk about this one. But in a way, I have to say, all the philosopher, not only Chinese philosopher, Western philosopher, okay, they all criticize something. Okay? For example, let's take the earliest, Plato. Okay, in a way, Plato could be argued against Pythagoras because sophist is popular over there. So if you understand sophist, then you probably will find out that almost every single line Plato is talking about is argued against sophist. So that's the way people read, and I may not be right, and then we don't know. That's just my opinion. But thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other question, comment? And I just have to say, I feel like I have a lot I haven't present, but I think I probably it's already enough because last year I I spent whole year just deal with 7 chapter. Finish, please.
Yeah, I've loved this presentation. A couple slides ago, I was talking about how you need enlightenment in order to go past the like common thinking of the day. Almost that's how I was interpreting it. Like, and that was making me think about how you can have like two sides of a conversation where one side says one thing and the other one argues the other thing. So they kind of are just against each other.
Yeah.
But in reality, the answer might be totally out of their conversation. And then the only way you can find that reality is through your own reason, like high quality reason.
Yeah,
So
great. I will say I agree with you. That's what I try to say. Yeah. So
yeah, that was just me interpreting it. Yeah, it's awesome point.
yeah. But anyway, thank you for listening. And then I was if do you have any question, comment? Welcome. You know. So
Just the comment that, as always, very enjoyable. I think you did a really good job of digesting it in a couple hours.
yeah, I hope you. I think that will be this will not be the last time we talking about this. But anyway, next week, Sashi SK will talk about a review on Bhagavad Gita. Okay, and then a week after or two, we will work on the schedule. So we will try to complete the Chinese philosophy and complete the Hinduism Bhagavad Gita. Okay, make it a complete section. So try to bring it. The challenge is here. Not everybody attend from this chapter 1 to the last one. So we always have to deal with some review, some background, and we don't want to occupy too much time on the review for the person who already know something before. So that's the challenge, but we will try our best, and great to have you guys and see you next week. So